The sun beams down on her face as she scans the horizon for a trace of the invading Israelite army. Her heart pounding in her ears, fists pressed against the tears, she prepares herself to come face to face with her deepest unspoken fear. Because she is a harlot of Jericho, accustomed to a life of ease, but now haunted, she sits and she waits for all her worldly possessions to be seized. The breeze that blows over the walls only reminds her of what is to come. The God of Israel will sweep like a flood to destroy what she does and where she comes from. To tear down this city where she learned to worship the gods of lust and pleasure, where she first closed her heart against shame, sold her body in exchange for earthly treasure. But a measure of wisdom was granted to Rahab, this wealthy woman of the night, insight into the single solution, the only way that she could make things right. If she chose to hold on to her world, then she could, at the expense of her soul. But in order to preserve her life, what was destroying her had to be let go. All the wealth that she'd accumulated from offering her body and soul to men, her envied connections to power, and all of her ungodly so-called friends. The security and the safety that she felt from living behind a man-made wall. No, now her new security had to come from allowing her old security to fall. The victories of this God's people were evidence enough that he was real, so she let her destroyer become her redeemer, he who has torn so that he might heal. And the shield of his love and protection covered her house and all who were inside, but Rahab's life as she knew it and her old ways of thinking all died. Because tried and true is the word of God, which says we can only serve one master, not two. The kingdoms of darkness and light cannot both live inside of you. So when God shows us the way that we've been living or a part of our life that has to go, he'll say, this is something that will kill you if you continue to allow it to grow. So we have a choice. Every voice of reason will rise to condemn and question God's command. In our hearts, we want to call sin good and soften the urgency of his demand. But to the conquering Israelites, he said, the treasure of Jericho is under the ban. Sacrifice unto me everything connected to this land. Don't root about the ruins trying to figure out what you can save. Jericho represents your idolatry, everything besides me that you crave. It was a grave site, a burial ground for their sin. And after this victory, the Israelites thought there was no battle they could not win. But after this victory without, then began the struggles within. Within the mind of Achan, son of Zerah, a soldier in Israel's ranks who longed for more than God had given instead of trusting him and giving thanks. Despising the warning of the Lord, Achan broke rank and turned back. Robbing the dead, he thought to gain the fullness of life that he lacked. So he packed up and hid away a few things. Just one or two souvenirs of the past. You know, that last love letter he wrote me before I heard the Lord tell us to break up. That one little curse word I keep because, well, just be glad I don't say the other stuff. And it can be tough to surrender the big sins to the Lord for the first time. But what we also need to watch out for are the little foxes that will spoil the whole vine. Because this time the Israelites were up against Ai, a small town, easy to defeat. After Jericho, it should have been nothing, and yet Ai had Israel beat. Why? I mean, the streets were filled with the people of God who now turned before the enemy and ran. Because God said you will not have victory until you release the things under the ban. When you look at them, you see treasure because you don't understand what's really there, that your enemy has studied your weakness and designed for each of you a customized snare. So prepare again for battle, but this time you come with your hands clean. You must destroy Achan, son of Zerah, everything in you that will not bow to me. And I know how your heart breaks at first when I take away what you long to keep. Like that too close friendship that makes you choose between serving your flesh and serving me. So I ask you to lay it down so you can be mine like I made you to be. That bitterness you think you have a right to because of the pain caused by your mom or your dad. That consuming ambition to get out of this life, all the things that your parents never had. Those thoughts you let your mind linger on because you figure physical purity is enough. The high-paying job you should no longer be at because you heard me say your time there is up. You're not always going to understand why I choose to take certain things away, but if you can understand that I love you, then you can trust every word that I say. Because if I let you feel good now, later on, you will hurt, and you should know by now that because I love you, that's not the way that I work. I take away the so-called good now in order to make space for the best. And I tell you to let go a lot because I want you to gain the rest. And by rest, I mean peace. Knowing you're where you should be. Confident that everything in your life is focused on honoring me. Don't think I don't care about the pain your heart conceals, but remember the purpose in that pain, that I have torn you that I might heal. And as a matter of fact, look at my wrists, my feet, my side, my back. I was torn so that you might be healed. So don't you ever doubt that my love for you is real. Let the joy set before you overcome the way that you feel. So at the end of the day, after Achan had been removed, the Israelites swept Ai. And God said, the treasure in this place is for you. Receive the blessing I give to those who say yes when their flesh longs to say no. And when I ask you to sacrifice your good, expect to get my best and let go. Just let go.